Hi, everybody. Welcome along to episode 146 of Percussion Discussion. As always, I'm going to ask you to check out our social media. You can find us on Instagram and, of course, Facebook and our world famous YouTube channel where you can find all of our conversations, past and present, with the video to accompany. Please subscribe. It really helps. Even though there's no adverts on there, it helps grow the channel. More people see it. And yeah, so that can't be a bad thing. If you would rather listen on the go, all of our conversations are available in podcast form, and these are free to download from your favorite, even podcast providers. Please rate and review us if you can. Again, it really, really helps grow the channel, get it out to more like-minded people. So thanks for that. On to today's guest. I'm absolutely thrilled to have this gentleman, a really fabulous hard rock drummer. He's played for some amazing bands, Whitesnake, Ozzy Osbourne, Foreigner, Billy Idol, and most recently, he's playing for the Gene Simmons band, of course. Gene Simmons from Kiss. Kiss are sadly no longer a thing, and he's the driving force behind on the drum stool. So it gives me immense pleasure to welcome the wonderful Mr. Brian Tichy.
Cool, no problem.
Ah,
How
it's
you
good
doing?
to, I'm all right. It's good to see it. And unusually for a drumming podcast, you'll see you got a guitar on your lap. That's never
Well,
happened before.
this is where I sit in my uh, kitchen nook here, and I've got a little Black Star practice amp and my little EVH Van Halen guitar, which
I
I
did
absolutely
notice.
love. So so it's like if it's here and I come here, the laptop, notes, whatever, this is kind of the center of the house. So it's good. And I got an acoustic next to me as well. So I have no excuse to not noodle whenever I'm here, you know.
So that's great. I mean, what sort of standard have you taken? An EVH guitar. Can you nail some of his riffs and licks?
Oh, yeah, I've put a, well, I can't play like Eddie at all, but I don't know, a year and a half, a couple of years ago, I started really trying to put time into dissecting his style and just got really into it because over the years, I've played guitar since I was a kid and I've learned some, as a kid, high school or whatever, I was trying to figure out Eddie stuff. It was all wrong, but um, over the years, I've tried to pick up this or that or pick out stuff and then I got a little more serious about it. So hey, and you can go watch on my whatever
Hmm.
Instagram or YouTube. I've put up some solos trying to, you know, yeah. But if I started playing now, I'd probably sound kind of crappy. But yeah, I've learned quite a bit of Eddie stuff. Just little, little, I don't, why, just little, there's like a. That's the part of the, that, what is that? That's one of his classic, that's one of the harder things to play, that shuffle. But he's like, what does he go at? Ah, oh my God. I'm playing it wrong now. Jesus Christ. Yeah, stuff like that.
Awesome. But
Yeah.
do you find that having that ability on guitar, does that help you as a drummer as well in a band setting? Does it kind of add anything or not? I don't know.
Oh, totally,
Yeah.
totally. It's in so many ways. Just understanding the basics of music theory and even watching guitar players or bass players' hands. Like, knowing, having learned a lot of songs and stuff on guitar, you can kind of, yeah, you can talk arrangements. You can get to the point quicker in rehearsals or,
Hmm.
yeah, even live. I can kind of see where somebody's hand is and tell, okay, maybe if, where things might go or whatever. But yeah, it's nothing but helpful,
Hmm.
and on every level. I can't imagine being a drummer in a band and not having that knowledge or um, you know being able to you know partake in everything that goes on with from songwriting to arranging to in rehearsals and Yeah, and you can hear things. Okay, obviously I know we're in A. I can hear the riff. I can hear where things are going. And yeah, it's totally helpful. Yeah,
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
interesting. And do you, I mean, we can go back and talk about where you started and everything, but do you read music at all?
No, no, I understand it. I can look at something but no, I've put no time into that in
Hmm.
decades and decades. So yeah, like when I was a little kid, my mom had me take a couple years of piano lessons,
Yeah,
so I learned how to read the basic stuff, but I wasn't really into it, and I never put time into it.
sure.
No,
And does
and
that
I've
go
never
for,
really never been in situations where I mean, charts. Like if you gave me like a drum chart or a
yeah,
chord chart, yeah, I could follow along, or I could read. You know, I understand how to, read enough to follow along, but sight reading or reading notes, no, I'd be sitting there
yeah.
forever staring at the piece of paper. Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing that like most other drummers, you have a way. I was speaking with Kenny Aronoff last week, and he was talking about he did the Sammy Hagar thing, filling in for Jason Bonham only last week, I think. And he
Yeah.
was saying he had like 20, well, just under a day to learn 22 songs and go out and do it. And obviously, he writes in very intricately. Would you put like your own kind of chart slash cheat sheets together on it in that situation, or?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. But, luckily, I'm familiar with. Well, I don't know their set, but there's probably a large chunk of it I'm familiar with.
Hmm,
The songs.
yeah,
So it would be. You got to go with. Yeah, I make up my own charts and I try and write as little detail as possible
hmm,
because the more detail, the more you have to pay attention to it.
yeah.
Unless there, of course, is some obvious detail on something you've never heard or played before, you want to dig in a bit and get the details going. But uh, I've written so many charts for decades, and one thing I started doing, God, it might probably 20 years ago, was saving every note or every chart for whatever level. I just save it and put it in a folder, and it's in a big box, and I mean it's like a stack of, oh my God, yeah. There's a lot of bands uh, charts in there. But it's totally helpful. Of course, when you get off the charts, that's the best. Uh, but yeah, I have my own little way of writing, and but it's been very helpful in last minute situations.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Um, but everybody has their own way. Mine's probably sloppy, but it sort of makes sense to me. And I write charts all the time. If somebody has me if I'm doing sessions and stuff, you get somebody's song, you make a chart sheet of it, and that's where you got to be. Sometimes, somebody has a drum demo. Can you stick close to this but do your own thing? Okay, so you got to kind of make sense of, okay, there's his bass drum pattern, so he's got a fill here. The fills are in the vein of this and that. I can maybe veer off a little this way, but that one seems like a fill he'd like to keep. So yeah, I've put a lot of time into charts, but
Yeah.
it's never this nice, well-written thing where anybody else could really follow.
Well, I think that's the way with a lot of drummers, isn't it? You have to have a way of getting through a gig. Perhaps if you've not had the time to rehearse, or you, maybe no time to rehearse, you've got to find a way through, and that's and that's not everyone's way, but if it gets you through, then gets the job done, get paid.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. Especially it sucks live when you have to rely on charts. But there's been so many times. There's been bands I've been in where I didn't need them. We
Yeah.
had enough rehearsal, and then there's other situations where it's just that the gig. It, at least to me, seems like I should really be nailing. Like for example, I've been for a bunch of years on and off. I played with Don Felder, and it's mostly outside of a few songs, mostly Eagles stuff. And
Hmm.
okay, the drumming, it's not like this involved, you know, radical drumming going on, but it's a show Don's been doing and for many years, and these are huge songs. So and I've been in that situation a lot where you you can go back to the original version or you can look at what the band does now, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's actually more important. And in the case of like a Don Felder gig, I was sent a video of a live show, and I watched the drummer and I charted off of that. I was like, whatever he's doing, he's been doing it for years. that's where they're at. That's
Hmm.
probably a better route to go to take than to go back to the originals. Also, keeping in mind arrangements and cues. You know, the band's playing off of this. They do an ending like this. The intro's here. They stop here. Blah blah blah. And so I would base all that off of the current versions that they're playing,
Yeah.
and and then over time, like for me at least, the Eagles are huge, so you hear songs all over the radio all the time. Oh wow, the original version, Don actually does a little on the hi-hat, or he does a little ghost note in this verse, which I didn't know from. I haven't been playing that because I was basing everything off of. So
Sure.
you might add some stuff in over time, if it's not getting in the way. Um, God, years ago I did a thing. I filled in for Simon Wright with Jeff Tate when Jeff was doing his own Queensryche, and there was the other Queensryche as well.
Sure.
This is like 2013, and he was doing the whole Operation Mindcrime record, and I know that means a lot to a lot of people, and there's fans that come to if he's going to play the whole record. So I kind of did a few things there. I would listen to what Simon was doing currently because they had already done some touring. Then I'd listen to the original,
Scott
and
Rockenfield.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Scott's great. There's a lot of great drumming on that stuff. And then I'd listen to Scott on tour in that in that era, and oh, okay, he changed things up a bit. So I chose. For me, it was like, okay, I think the fans are going to know the record the most.
Hmm.
If you're coming to see this whole record and you're into that record and you grew up on that, then your ear is going to be most familiar with the drumming on the record. Yeah, if Scott wrote the drum parts, he can do whatever he wants. And if Jeff's rehearsing, Jeff Tate's rehearsing with a new band and they do it a certain way, cool. But to me, that big picture was to honor the actual recordings,
Sure.
and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that was detailed. That was charting out kick drums and fills like real close to the original. And I had um, my charts up on, and I had a pretty big drum set at the time with concert toms and semicircle of toms on it. So underneath the concert toms by the hi-hat, you got all your charts, but it was worth it to me. And as the tour went on, you're getting used to it. But it was sort of a tall order because there was, the whole record plus, I don't know, maybe five or six
Hmm.
hits that we'd play after, to end the show. But it was yeah, it was fun. It was a challenge, but I liked knowing that anybody out there that grew up on this is going to get a pretty close representation of the drums from the record.
Sure. No, I get that. I get that. So, did there become a point in the tour then when you ditched the charts completely, or were they always like the safety net that was?
That's an interesting thing. Sometimes it becomes a crutch, and it can make you nervous.
Hmm.
I've done it even with Don Felder. There's been times I don't play with Don. It could be a bunch of months. Like I did a couple of years with him, then I didn't. Schedules didn't work out, whatever. Um, but yeah, the charts they could become a crutch. Like so, with the Felder stuff, play a bunch of gigs, don't play for a while, play a bunch of gigs, go back to your charts because it's a pretty regimented gig, like everything's pretty exact.
Yeah.
So, and you're playing to a click. So there's definite endings and starts, there's cues. And there's that thing of, oh, I don't want to get too comfortable and think I got it. And then I mix one ending up with another. It's like the last thing I need. So sometimes it's there sort of as a crutch or just to refer to as a double check. Okay, yes, that is definitely the ending.
Yeah.
I've been doing gigs on them recently, and somehow, or last year we did a nice run. And when you're playing every night, you can get rid of the charts. But if 4 months go by, I'm not just going to jump up there and um, assume that just because I did it without charts before, it's all there because
Cool.
it's not a regular gig and. Yeah, so it depends. It's just yeah, I would prefer not to, but then you just I'd rather have it and not make a mistake than
No,
think I have it all together. Could I start going, well, that's kind of like what it's been for me is like I haven't been in that one band and that's your focus. Like this is my gig. It's like there's always many things going on. There's
hmm.
always, oh, I'm doing this with this band, this with this band, this gig, whatever. So there's I guess the good thing is right now, if you know, there's a lot of information in my head from the past of um, the band set lists that I've played with that I could probably jump back in and get through the set, like Foreigner. You know, I've been in
Yeah.
and out of Foreigner so many times, and they've called me. Oh, you know, a couple years ago, their drummer Chris Frazier, he had COVID or whatever. I filled in for a week, so I did a quick review. They sent me a live show, a recent live show, and I got there that day and I went and jumped on Chris's drums and they just played, I think they played a live, one of their last live concert and I could just play along, you know, and
Yeah.
before the guys got there. And in that world with Foreigner, I've just done it so much that it's even live endings and stuff, they're still in the back of my head, you know,
Yeah.
because I've just done it, done, you know,
And
I mean, they have differences, there's differences in the live show, but there's some things that they definitely end the same way they did a long time ago,
sure.
you know.
But when you've been on a gig and then no longer do it for whatever reason, things just get stale after a while. We know, there's different reasons for people leaving a band. So when you go back in, be it 12 months, be it 2 years, do you still play Brian Tichy parts rather than, playing the other drummers' parts? Do you play it as you played it at that point? And I'm not talking about, form of the song, but as in parts. You've done it for so long. Do you just play your
Yeah,
way?
well, it always depends on the gig and where they're at and where you're at, you know,
Mm.
and maybe what you were doing is still going to work. Maybe you notice they've changed things up. I mean, with something like Foreigner, that set list it's an amazing set list of classic, huge, massive songs everybody knows. So there's really,
It
to
writes
me,
itself, doesn't it? That.
yeah, for the most part, and I joined that band in 1998. That was like, and I was with them for like 2 solid years back then. And the bulk of that set list is going to be the same because
Mhm.
those songs are the huge songs. Those 15 songs are songs that you go see Foreigner, you better play. You better not leave out Jukebox Hero and
Yeah.
Hot Blooded and Double Vision, you know? So, um, yeah, I never veered too far off of the original versions. Certain fills that popped out when I was a kid that, you know, I mean, I just practiced the Foreigner records or they were all over the radio. So to me, it was always like if I hear, you know, God, middle of the verse, if it feels like the first time, I better hear glad clap boom into the second part. If that's not there, it's like that's a big mistake. I don't care if everybody out there watching doesn't know that or care. I care, and it's a massive song, and it needs to be there. And why not? You know what I mean? Let's keep the stuff in there that's like that everybody knows. You know,
That's,
you could change it up. You can go blat to blat blat, but no, man, go blat to blat to blat. Do that. That's what it is. You know.
I'm a great believer in the saying that people like what they know. You know what I mean? You get used to it. It's like the filling all right now, the do 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 that. You couldn't change
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's another. That's just classic. Don't touch it
Yeah.
ever. Don't. But what's funny is then you talk about like one of the biggest bands in the world. It could be well, it's the Stones or Zeppelin
Hmm?
or the Who. You go see them live in the heyday. Stuff was changing every night.
Yeah.
On, I mean, pick any Zeppelin studio version compared to a live version. And but I guess that's what it's like to be in Led Zeppelin. It's all that good. The live version is its own version everybody loves, and the studio version is its own version. Tempos, you know, guitar parts. There's so but they were always evolving. And but then there's bands where you kind of want even Van Halen. I mean,
Hmm.
Alex Van Halen changed stuff up a lot. But I guess if you're in the ballpark, like, okay, I'm not gonna, change the entire beat I'm not gonna go for this whole new thing, but I'm gonna stay in the same world I was in. Then it works, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, yeah. So I'd say most of the time, it seems like bands change it up a bit live, but then if somebody go, well, Rush, they play everything note for note. They're pretty damn close. But even Neil would change things up. Things develop, but he's still in the world of, and still the big stuff that everybody knows. The meat of it's all
Yeah. Yeah.
similar. Yeah, but change stuff up.
It's all good. You know,
Yeah.
the first time I've only ever seen you live once, and that was Donington in '94. Obviously
Oh wow.
with Pride and Glory, and that's the only time I've ever
Yeah.
seen you live. I've seen lots of footage online, and I love that. I love that band anyway. And I think that was the last Donington I did, and I remember it because it was the first Donington where they had two stages that had never been done before.
Oh
Uh,
right, that's right. I don't even remember where the second stage was. That was my first time to Europe. That
hmm,
was man, that was that day in particular was so great. It was so much fun because Donington, I, um,
legendary.
such a huge
Yeah,
festival that I've been so aware of, just growing up hearing about it and to be able to open up the day on the yeah, we were on the main stage. Yeah, it
yeah, you
was
were. You Aerosmith,
I mean,
Pantera. Oh, can't
I think
remember.
Sepultura,
Sepultura.
Extreme. Yeah, it was a lot of great stuff and just as yeah, that was a lot of fun. And the record, I think our record had just come out, and we were looking back at it. It's fun to look back at it now because it's a whole different perspective. But I wasn't. Well, it's not that I wasn't proud of it, but I just didn't think much of it. But back then, and then time goes on, and it wasn't the hugest band going, but what Zakk was going for and what we ended up doing as a trio was unlike anything else out at the time. I mean, for real, there were so many great bands out there, like new bands. The whole
Yeah.
grunge thing was happening. So there was like, you had from Black Crowes to STP and Soundgarden,
Mm.
to Alice in Chains, and you had this whole heavy movement going on. And but we were jamming. It was Southern fried, and Southern tinged, and but we would jam, but man, Zakk he was just killing it. And James as well, and we played without there was no rules, but there were unspoken rules, and it was the song is the song, so we all did have our parts, but the parts were made up jamming together,
Mm.
getting ready to make the record, and outside of me occasionally asking Zakk, "Oh, what fill should I do?" or "What do you hear?" or he'll go, "I don't know, man. Here's the riff. Just do like goo goo gat," And okay, he went. That's as soon as he said goo goo gat. There you go. That's what he wants. That's what I'm going to do. Let's start with that. And then there would be other times he wouldn't say anything, and I just start doing things, and he wouldn't say anything, and it becomes the part.
Yeah.
So there was so much like fun freedom. It really was fun to come up with all that. And James and I wouldn't talk about rhythm section things together. He played out, we played, I played out, I played. And in the room, if we all weren't saying something sounds, wrong or not as good as it could, it was left like it it was. And
Oh,
so that's really a total representation. No producers. Rick Parrish was the producer, but he really recorded us and made sure he got our sounds, like the sounds that we were giving him, and kept it as real as possible. I mean, no clicks. We didn't do clicks back then. That was another thing that was we recorded it in '93, and yeah, so that we didn't even talk about clicks. We just played. You hit record, count the band in, and go. And as the drummer, your job is to make it groove and make it feel good and have a nice pocket
yeah.
and achieve what the goal was in the rehearsals was to get a nice representation of the song that we all came up with together. But yeah, it was a lot of fun and Donington was, yeah. I mean, for me, the highlight, of course, the opening for Aerosmith was awesome, but I was such a huge Pantera
Mm.
fan and I had met Vinny and Dime like maybe once or twice here or there. We weren't, but it was great looking over, seeing those guys watching us and hanging with them backstage and watching Pantera just kill it that day. I think
Yeah, they
Far
did.
Beyond Driven had just come out, and Zakk and I were watching their show behind Dime's rig, and I have like 20 minutes of footage of that show from my on my high eight tape.
Amazing.
So I'm getting like Vinny on the side, and his drum tech Cat was behind him, which was a show unto itself, and the guys, Rex, Phil and Dime were just they were just so tight and massive, and yeah. But drank way too much, and I did like shots with Dime. It was like, so, yeah, it was a fun day. I'm surprised I remember any of it.
It's so nice to hear the perspective from the people who've played it, because obviously we're amongst 60, 70,000 people at the front. We don't see any of this, and to actually hear it firsthand is really cool.
Oh man, well, I remember hearing, oh, you're gonna get bottles of piss thrown at you, and I went on stage before we played, and yeah, there's like little chocolate bars hitting the stage, and bottles, and I'm like, wow, uh, I don't know what it's gonna take to win these guys over, and I guess it doesn't matter. We're gonna do what we do.
Hmm.
But the cool thing is, Zakk just came into Ozzy's band. I mean, so Zack's a guitar god, starting his own band. There's guaranteed respect there, but
Mhm.
nobody knows our songs, and so we threw down, and we sounded pretty damn good as a trio, and
Yeah.
I've seen that footage here and there. It pops up, the like War Pigs or something, and I have my own high eight. I gave it to our sound man. I was like, take my camera. I used to do it a lot. Put it on your soundboard and just film the show. So I have a lot of full shows of a pretty good representation sonically of us playing. Not a board mix or not some crappy camera. There were no, phone cameras then, or
Yeah.
iPhones or whatever. From some weird angle. I'd always have it right from the soundboard, and so we could watch the whole show. And I have a lot of that stuff.
But that's like gold dust to keep that, isn't it? That's amazing.
Yeah, it'd be nice someday. I mean, if I dug it out, and I had a buddy at one point in time. Like I have a lot of stuff, and making of the record too. There's probably like I don't know 8 hours or something of footage of us making the record and me just leaving the camera on or filming us doing stuff, and a lot of good stuff. And yeah, Zakk definitely could put a solid hour plus of, or more. He could put a 2 hour or whatever long he wants of like songs from different festivals or shows, club shows I have. And because we toured a lot in Europe that
Mm.
summer, and then went to the States, and I have stuff in Japan, and yeah, and the making of the record, it would be for anybody who's a Pride and Glory fan, it'd be worth it. But it
Definitely.
was a good time, and it was a lot of fun, and I look back, and man, James and Zakk were killing, were absolutely killing it, and I really like that. Who cares about the sales? Every now and then, traveling, touring, and people come up and say they either saw that show or some Pride and Glory show, or they have the record. Or drummers write me saying, "Oh, you're drumming on that record," and it's really nice to hear. But we weren't trying to be anything like we. I guess that's the biggest point. We never were nobody at the label management, the making of the record. Nobody was telling us the sound. Zakk was so on his own path,
Mm.
and we just jumped on it with him, and that's what it was. I'm really happy that we got to do it like that, because that's a rarity. I mean, to
Yeah.
get on a major label and be Zakk, and there's that pressure of we need a single, and all the things that a record label wants, and there was none of that. And if there was, John Kolodner was the what do you call it, the A&R guy,
Yeah.
and I'm sure John wanted a hit single, and the first song we put out was a song called "Horse Called War," which is definitely on the heavier side, and there's a lot of drumming going on in that song. And for anybody who cares, this was a funny story. When Zakk first called me that in '93 to, "Hey, come out to LA, let's do the band." I went out, we jammed, and that was it. We started rehearsing, did the record and all that, but we did the record up in Seattle. We rehearsed for like 3 weeks, went up to Seattle. We were there for a few months, which was a great time. We had a rental house and a rental car and
Oh dear.
studio down the road, man, and it was just so much fun. But uh, he, I remember hearing, oh, Zack's got this new band he's doing. It's more like Southern. It's more, maybe Eagle Skinner. And when he called me to join, I was like, oh man, I mean, that'd be great. But if he's doing like Southern, like Eagle Skinner, I don't know. I mean, but then he goes, well, check it out, man. Here's one of the songs. And he plays me. He goes, yeah, it's a riff. The riff goes like this. And he's on the phone. He plays me Horse Called War riff. I was like, oh yeah, man. Okay. And then he goes into the verse. And I remember, and he's singing to it, and I remember going immediately. He wasn't like a big Kiss fan, but I was, and I remember going, do you know the song "Parasite" from Kiss? He's like, no. I'm like, the verse. Peter Criss kind of follows the riff and the vocal around the toms. Then he goes back to the main riff, grooves under it.
Mm.
I go, that sounds like it could be a cool way to go about it. And this was on the phone before we hadn't played or anything. And that's what it was. And that's what I did. We went out and started rehearsing. That was immediately just play a simple power beat. And then when he goes into the verse and sings, just follow him.
Amazing.
And that was literally us almost when he made that first phone call. That was us almost arranging the song
Oh,
before we even played together, you know?
I love hearing that. I love it. Tell
Yeah.
me, was any of that done live? Because it is a live sounding album. The drums in particular, big open sounds.
Yeah, I also was with DW at the time, and I requested a 26. I think I got a 26 by 16 as opposed to 14,
Hmm.
which and I've had a couple 26s over the years, and they were one was 26 by 16, one was by 18, and I think it was a D drum. But it wasn't until I got a Vistalite kit and I experienced working with a 26 by 14, that shallower drum gives it more punch.
Hmm.
There's less air moving around when you have no hole, no muffling. So I got this DW kit and it showed up at the studio. So I had just got it. Next day we're going to start recording. Set it up, tuned it up, and I was adamant with Rick Parrish. I was like, and we're in it's good sized room at London Bridge Studios and north of Seattle. And I said, yeah, this great room, man. This sounds big. And I go, Rick, I don't. I was Bonham, man, Bonham. No hole, no muffling. So I remember he mic'd the front head and he mic'd the beater to get some attack.
Yeah.
But the beater mic was getting too much shake from the snares. You know, you were
Yeah,
hearing a little
sure.
too much. So I remember we had to put like a gaff tape, a towel in between the bottom of the snare and the beater, you know, and the bass drum beater, so you wouldn't hear that snare drum shake. And I think that was pretty much how we made um, that was there, the whole making of all the tracks that were done in that big room.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I remember you being adamant about, you know, wanting to use my leady that I had since I was a little kid that had a nice, pretty uh, unique tone to it that I had since I was a little kid and then fixed up. Like I didn't use it for years. And then I fixed it up when I was like 18 and it's like, whoa, this thing's got a honk and a bonk and it's loud. And I used to take it on the road and tour and record with it. Like that was the snare I would take wherever for years and years. So I used that on the whole record as well. And yeah, and all the tracks, anything with the big drum sound, because there are some other tracks where we brought a small Ludwig rental kit into the smaller room, and we just started. There was a couple, I don't know, they were just not as hard rocking songs. There was a couple that we recorded in the smaller kit, in the smaller room, but we were getting a really cool sound in that room. And I remember going, "Wow, I hear a little more detail.
Hmm.
That's actually cool, man. Should we redo everything in here?" But we didn't because we already had it recorded. But that was it, man. Everything. Um, all the guitars, bass, and drums were all live. And I don't even know if they edited takes. I don't think we
Wow.
were even editing. I know for the perfect example is the song on there called "Shine On." It was one take,
I know it.
literally. All right, guys, let's do "Shine On" today. All right, we had rehearsed it. Okay, blah blah blah. Let's go, and we did it. And at the end, there's a little jam, and goes into a different part of the song. We jam to the end. And I did some fill that was just kind of lame, and and I was like, oh, that sucked, you know. And we go back in the control room after this first take and listen, and I remember Zakk's going, "This is the one. We're done. This is it." I go, "No, no, man, it was the first take." I go, "No, let's just do it again. This fill, it's lame. I sound like I just fell off my seat." You know, I was going down the kit. I was supposed to crash on one, and whatever my hands were doing, I ended on the floor tom of the kick on one, and not crashing. It was like a left hand lead or something. Ugh. He crashed on two, and I was like, it's just I know what I did. I didn't mean to do that, and it sounds like I'm, you know, off balance, and
Yeah.
or somebody
Yeah.
pushed me off my seat. He's like, no, and he's like, that's what you're gonna have to live with the rest of your life, you know. And we kept it, and that was it. There was no discussion after that. He's like, that's it. And James was just chuckling along, and we never played it again until we went on tour, or until we rehearsed to go on tour. So that's how live it was. Yeah, I don't remember them putting two takes together. Sometimes some songs we do, you know, maybe three takes, maybe five, I don't know.
Hmm.
And I don't remember them going, cool, that's good up to the middle. Let's edit to the end from that take. I don't remember them doing that. Maybe they did, but
Hmm.
I remember we would go for takes. Zakk sang, you know, after he finished all the music,
Yeah,
he overdubbed his vocals,
of course.
and there were some tambourines and bongos he'd overdub, and I think he overdubbed solos, but there might be some that were part of the rhythm track. Like I want to say like Horse Called War. I think that was just full blown. Yeah, I think that was like completely live because there's no rhythm track underneath it. I think we just did the take and he went into his solo and just, killed it and that was it. So he just had to overdub his vocals.
I'm so glad you've explained that because every time we listen to the album, which I still have on CD, actually, I think is it CD or no, I haven't got the vinyl. I've always have it. I don't think I have that on vinyl. And and I always think that is one of the most live sounding albums ever. And it was either live or
Cool.
somebody's really clever to make it sound live, which you can't always recreate, can you? Let's be honest. You can't recreate that energy.
No, the no, it's not live only because of the drums. I think all these recordings start with a drum sound. You go to listen to a Steely Dan record, it sounds those drums generally in Steely Dan have a certain sound, or Eagles or Fleetwood Mac. It's more of a drier, small room, tight, close mic sound. You go to Queen or Zeppelin, or you might hear more ambience, and that's what starts like the perception of this sounds like Bad Company sounds live. It sounds like
Mm.
they're all playing. It just sounds like a nice drum sound in a room, a nice room, and create catch some ambience. But um, the big room where most of the drums were done, that lent itself to, yeah, that's what we took advantage of. Was getting that big ambient sound. And Zakk's amps were in a smaller room, mic'd up, and James's bass rig was in another room, mic'd up, but it was all like ready to feed back. And I mean, you can hear, James had pretty, a healthy amount of gain or distortion or whatever, or overdrive on his rig, so it was almost always ready to feed back, even when he wasn't standing next to it. But yeah, all the rhythm tracks. I don't even know if Zakk was doubling. Like I think it was always like one rhythm guitar track, and if you wanted to add a color, he'd overdub a color guitar. It might be a rhythm guitar or an overdub this or that. But yeah, it was all live, and like I said, no clicks. And um, I don't remember anybody trying too hard. I don't remember too much going on about I think that sound that you hear on the record was pretty much what it was from day one. I think when we just plugged in and played, and Rick mic'd us up and said, "Come on in and listen." We were like, and I used to, every day, Rick, there was one thing Rick would do, which was, it was getting a little crazy. I was like, what? He was like, "Can you tighten your bass drum up?" I guess on his side, gave it a little more punch. So, and these are new heads on a kit, and they're kind of stretching out as I'm going. But he would tell me to tighten it up, and I remember the kick was getting pretty darn tight, and I was using a double pedal on a 26 with no muffling and no hole,
Wow.
which is
So,
a kind of a that's its own little technique to
yeah.
make that nice and even, because like I said, there's the air is moving around so quickly inside the kick, and the reaction of the head, it's flapping everywhere,
Mm.
compared to taking a 22 and detuning it with a pillow and a hole. That's like total control. It's 26, man. You just got to dig in and go. And I wasn't doing anything crazy on the double kicks, but just to keep it even, on one bass drum. It was a little bit of a thing. And this was a brand new kit I never played before, but I was like, drums are drums, set it up how I like it, tune it how I like it, and play. But yeah, it was really live, and the attitude in and out of the songs, just you could hear some ad libbing and stuff, but that was the spirit of the band, was to sound like you're hanging out with us at a barbecue and we're playing. That was what it was all about.
Mission accomplished, I reckon. I love that album to this day, and I remember 1994 like it was yesterday. That Donington
Uh,
gig, I really do.
like I said, we did a lot of festivals then and a lot of club shows, and it really was a lot of fun just going
Mm.
to Europe for the first time, and just us, and just the whole experience of being in this band and having to present yourselves a certain way, and we're just like you know um, a heavy-sided jam band, not jam band, whatever people think that means, but we would take chances, and there were jams live and 20-minute versions of whatever. You would pick a cover song, we just go and go and go live, and that was the fun of it. But we were all listening. It wasn't like just to noodle and go crazy and be loud. We would break things down and build and go, and it was a lot of fun because there were no rules like that except listen to each other and have fun playing and being musical, and every night's different, you know. But we also had our parts. Like, I mean, if we're gonna play Horse Called War or whatever, or Losing Your Mind, that we played it like the record because
Of
that
course. Yeah.
the kind of song it was, you know. And then we do other stuff where we go off and take chances, you know. Yeah, like I said, looking back, it was I didn't think of it. I didn't put it on in my life, at least, as on a pedestal as tall of a pedestal as I do now,
Mm.
um, because it really was going against the grain of everything. And I think if meaning everything out there, like you
Yeah. Yeah.
couldn't go see another rock band that was signed on a major label with videos on MTV and singles and a record in the stores that was kind of playing like this. And you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, and you had some amazing bands out there. You
Yeah.
know, it was so much great stuff. But I think what we were doing, for better or worse, was at least it was fun for us, and I think people that saw us got a pretty entertaining show. And if you um, were a fan of Zakk Wylde, man, you were getting Zakk at this extremely high level. Like, I
Mm.
mean, he was nailing it every night, and we were drinking like fish. Like, that was part of it. I think his corporation was called the Band of Beers, and that was the thing. There's that's part of it. You're drinking and you're playing, and which is cool experience wise because there were no rules. I mean, yeah, don't get stupid drunk before the show, but nobody's saying, "Oh, wait till after the show to have a beer." No, we're bringing a cooler of beers in front of the bass drum at a 10 a.m. festival, and we're all grabbing a beer and going. It was so, and we barely slept, and we doing these long ass drives all over Europe, for just to make gigs, and but yeah, it was nothing but fun, and I think if we had stayed together, I think it would have grown similar to like Black Label Society because he
Mm.
put time into that, and that was like, you know, um, that hasn't stopped since it
No.
started, and for whatever reasons, things changed up after that first record. Uh, Unbeknownst to me, it just kind of happened, and I think he had big calls going. I think Ozzy wanted him back. I think
Mm.
Axl was calling him to join GNR. This is all like 95.
Sure.
So at that time, I mean, man, I don't know, Zach's 27, 28, whatever. He's probably like, I can come back to this, but these opportunities are here as well, and um, that's what happened. But yeah, he didn't. Obviously, I think he went back and did Ozzy records, of course, over all the years. He keeps going back and working with Ozzy, but didn't do the GNR thing, and then continued. And a few years later, started Black Label, and I remember he came over to my house and, "Dude, come, sit in my car, come and check out this new band," and I had a new band going on. We both played each other our new stuff. It was the first Black Label record, and he hasn't stopped since then. It was like 1998. So more power to him. Keeping it, for kicking ass all these decades, and being Zakk,
Yeah.
doing it
Well,
how he does it.
talking of Aussie, I know you've subbed on a few Aussie shows for Mike Bordin in the past.
But that's an interesting way to put it. But I actually did the summer, the whole summer. I
Oh,
think,
I
but you're right. I didn't remember why. Like, why did that happen? Mike went to Corn for some reason that
yeah, yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
2000. Yeah, so I did that summer. Yeah, the whole Ozfest in the
Mm.
States. Yeah.
So that was, I mean, were you like an Aussie fan anyway, and a Sabbath? Oh, of course you were a Sabbath fan and an Aussie fan.
Oh no, no. I grew up on Sabbath. I remember going to a garage sale and there was Yes Relayer and Paranoid on 8 tracks.
Mm.
Each were for a quarter, and I had 50 cents. And I went home, and that was my first exposure. I was young. I mean, I was like, 9 or 10 years old. And first time I heard Sabbath was on this 8 track. Yes was too much for me. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But Sabbath is like, whoa, this is like evil. This is like a whole other thing. And yeah, I grew up on Sabbath, and then of course grew up on Ozzy with Randy.
Mm.
The whole thing. I mean, just if you're into hard rock and metal, if you don't know Sabbath and the Ozzy, the Randy Ozzy solo, so something's wrong. You missed out on a lot of great shit. You better get it now. So yeah, I don't know who doesn't know that stuff, but yeah, totally, totally grew up on all that. So to play that stuff with Ozzy was a total highlight. Still is.
So
Yeah.
that must have been such a buzz to go out doing that. You know, the fact knowing that, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to play with Ozzy and do Ozfest. I mean, you know, I'll be honest, right? One of my earliest influences, Randy Castillo, who I loved everything about his playing.
Yeah,
Uh,
Randy's great. It's great.
you know, gone way too soon, obviously. I think it was the Ultimate Sin. I heard. Would that have been the first album he did? Was it the Ultimate Sin?
Yes, it was. Bark in the Moon was, I believe, the record before it with Tommy Aldridge
Yeah.
on drums on the record, and Carmine Peace was did the most of the tour, I think. Yeah, and then it was Ultimate Sin with Randy.
Oh, amazing. So,
But see, I was already into Randy because I saw a Lita Ford video on MTV before she got huge with that big song. It was the record before, and Randy was like, you know, doing some stick throws and banging his head or whatever, and looked cool. And what was the song? It was like called "God Gotta Let Go" or something.
hmm,
But it was I didn't know much about Lita Ford. It was kind of a heavier song, and Randy's throwing down. And there was even another band on MTV he was in at the time. So this is like early 80s, right? And so he was in LA getting around. He was like, yeah, there
yeah,
was another band. I forget the name of the band, but it was a pretty cool song and he stood out. And so when he joined Ozzy, I was like, oh, cool, man. I dig this Randy Castillo
yeah,
drummer, you know? But I had that one Lita Ford cassette and I got it because he had the fast footy, whatever. You hear little things. So I was like, oh, I wonder what he's doing on the whole record, this Lita record. And I remember getting that in
hmm,
whatever, I was probably 13, 14, whatever. But yeah, then we became buddies. Randy was a great guy. Great
amazing.
guy.
Ah,
Totally.
just what a, you know, it's sad, obviously, but you don't know how big he would have been today. You know, who knows? Who knows? Um,
Yeah, he was like a rock star drummer. Just the whole
yeah.
package was there. You know, the visual, the visual, the performance side. You know, obviously he was on a bunch of big records. You know, he had a long career. I think he even went into fill in for in Motley Crue. I think,
Hmm,
right? He
I think
joined.
so.
Yeah, that was a
The
nice.
coolest hair.
Yeah. He had, and I just his attitude and his spirit was so rock drummer. Like guys like him and like Steven Adler. It was just like they got on this path as kids. You know, I love drums. I love rock and roll, and you could just see um, the joy in their. You could hear and see the joy in their playing. You know, when you know watch those guys and it's infectious. You know what I mean? And I think it's just that's another thing we haven't even talked about. You know, personalities a lot. You go on audition, you know, if you have a certain charisma about you, whether it's behind the kit or you seem like a good person, you just have a certain personality that people gravitate towards. You know, that definitely doesn't hurt. You know, and I think
Sure.
guys like Randy had that, you know, just like like off the top of my head, like an Ace Frehley. Everybody loves Ace Frehley, you know. He's like just got that or Dimebag. You know, people just gravitate towards these personalities, and I think Randy had that. Yeah.
So tell us about playing these Aussie songs. I mean, that's dreamland for me, being up there getting to play Aussie songs.
No, it was a few Sabbaths, you know, the basics. I think we played Paranoid, War Pigs, and I don't know what else off the top of my head, and a bunch in the Ozzy, the solo stuff. And but then you're talking to a kid that grew up playing drums to Blizzard of Oz, like just and trying to learn Randy stuff on guitar. This is seventh grade, so that record was huge to me. Uh, 1980, that was a big deal. You know, it wasn't just I loved the record top to bottom, everything about it. Absolutely loved Randy and loved Lee Kerslake's drumming. So I would
Oh yeah,
try to learn guitar
yeah.
parts. It was really, I'm sure it was all wrong, not very good, but I did learn. I mean, I remember, oh my God, hands all cold. Jeez, nothing but excuses today. Uh, Whatever.
Yeah, I love it.
But
Love it.
no, I just remember learning like I got to learn that riff. You know, just that whole. You know what? on. There's a whatever they go down the whole.
Oh,
Oh, what was it? Uh, what is it? You know, a whole record. Oh wait, all right. Here's another one. That's record's so killer. What did I miss? I think I missed. Oh, we can't forget. Yeah,
just
just
that's legendary stuff, isn't it?
it's all killer. The whole, yeah. But yeah, yeah. So to play those songs with Ozzy, first of all, Ozzy's a god. He's a legend.
Mm.
He's one of the biggest, and so to just have that experience was awesome. Not to mention, you're coming in headlining Ozfest, playing with Pantera, playing before you. Like I warmed up every night. I'd stretch out and warm up watching Pantera. And so that's like I told you. We played with Pantera's Pride and Glory did in '94.
Yeah.
So here are like 6 years later, and God, I don't know if I saw any of the guys in that period. Like I don't know if I saw Vinny anywhere. I can't remember, but I remember going backstage in the catering, and I see Vinny, and Vinny's like, "Hey man, what's up?" It was like it could have been 6 years later, and we were friends, but we didn't keep in touch or anything. I, no, I think I saw him somewhere, maybe in '95. I was playing with Slash. We played in Dallas, and I think Vinny came out, but years had gone by,
Mm.
and he's like, "Hey, cool. What are you doing, man?" I go, "I'm playing with Ozzy." He was like, "Oh, he's like funny because he just thought maybe I'm some new band on Ozfest or something." But it was great. One of the first shows you look over and start of the tour and there's like Dime and Vinny and Phil and Tommy Lee over there watching you play. It was like or I'd turn around, I'd behind my riser and Vinny's sitting there watching with my drum tech, and no, it's all great experiences on that tour. But playing with Ozzy, yeah, of course, that's the top of the best experiences of it. And the band was great. Joe Holmes and Robert Trujillo.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
great. I mean, Holmes hasn't done anything in a minute. It's been a while, but man, he killed that stuff. Great tone, nailed all the Randy, the Zakk, the Jake, Iommi. He killed it. Robert, as we all know, Robert's amazing, and
Mm.
uh, yeah, it was just a great band. It was a lot of fun, and on this big stage with the fire and the smoke, and I think there was probably explosions. If not, there was a lot of water, with the fire hose. Yeah, it was, and that's another. I still had my high 8 video camera back then, and I think I had a little tripod, or I'd set it on something and videotape some of the shows from behind my floor toms.
Oh.
And I do have. I remember at one show, Ozzy had the fire hose thing, and he'd sit in a chair in the middle of like the Suicide Solution jam. We jammed for like 5 minutes or longer, and he'd just go up on this chair that would take him, I don't know, 20 feet high.
Hmm.
He'd be just fire hosing the audience, right? And at one point, which he never did, except for this one night in Crazy Train, which is towards the end of the set,
Yeah.
he comes over the fire hose and in the guitar solo. And I would play. It was always really hot. It was the summer. There's like fire next to me. So parts of the show, and that got really hot. Not that it only lasted a second, but I'm
Hmm.
saying, so it was like you're basically wearing a pair of shorts and gloves because you're sweating a lot. And it's just like it was like I quickly learned, this is that kind of show. I need gloves. But anyways, Ozzy comes up with the fire hose to me and gets on the riser and just hoses me the whole guitar solo. And I'm talking a fire hose. I'm not talking like a little sprinkler, like a backyard water sprinkler. Like it's just, and it's on video. I believe I have that on video. I think I was filming that show, and he did it the whole. So that's like 20 seconds, the whole guitar solo. And I went, okay, he never did this before. The drums were like mics got trashed.
Oh.
And then I just remember putting my head down, and all I could do was just try to keep the sticks just hold the sticks in my hands. So, and it's funny, you talk about these things, you go, oh, it's funny things that happen in heavy metal bands. But then you go, this is all part of the experience. Every one of these things, and I think I have a lot of experiences at this point in time. I've been doing this a long time with a lot of different bands, and I've been in a lot of different situations compared to, you know, being in one band. And that's not that it's different. It's just you're working with different people and different sort of set of rules and different goals and expectations. Even though you're still the rock drummer, it's just different when you're in different bands, you know. And you're not going with the flow of being in the same band for 10 years, even though, you know, I was with Billy Idol for, I don't know, 8, 9 years or something. But anyhow, uh, you can't teach somebody how to play along when your singer's got a fire hose and hosing you down for 20, 30 seconds. So I'm assuming he's mad at me. That's what I'm assuming. I've done something wrong. And I'm like, I'm probably going to get fired. And he comes back after the show. He had his dressing room, we had ours. And usually after the show, he'd come into ours and we'd hang out a little bit. And he comes in and I'm like, just not feeling good about it. I'm feeling like, you know, there's a reason he did this, and it's probably not something that's going to get me a raise, right? And he goes, "You're all right in the water," and what? "You're all right in the water." And I figure out what he's saying. He's like, "Were you okay with the water? Were you all right with the water?" Something like that. It was like, "Were you okay with me shooting the water at you?" And I was like, he just did it to do it. He's Ozzy, whatever. And I go, Oz, you can do whatever you want. It's your stage, man. You have to do whatever you want. I'm fine with it. So, all right, all right. You know, and I was like, cool. You know, it was just him going for it in the middle of the show, whatever, you
It
know.
only happened once. It only happened once, though.
Yeah, just this one time. But you don't forget it. You don't forget that now you have that. You can check that off. How to play when, getting hosed down for 30 seconds
Oh,
in the
do you
middle of a
know
show.
if you
Because
ever
I
find?
because it was like it could have been this, like it was just tense up and hold the sticks, because it's a fire hose. It's not like he
A
threw a
garden
bucket of
hose.
water at me, like, oh, I got hit with a bucket of water, that's done. This was like times that by 10, you know.
You
So
know, if you ever find the footage for that deserves a spot on YouTube, doesn't it? On your channel.
yeah, I have so many old high eight tapes, like from mainly 90s, I guess. It's 90s stuff. But I had a buddy who at one point in time was transferring them to DVDs.
Sure,
So
yeah.
there's a chunk of them. Let's just call it 100 high eight tapes.
Mm.
Maybe he did 30 or 40, and I don't remember which ones, but I do have them somewhere, like in a box. So, and there is a DVD um, that I've used to be on my laptop. Got a new laptop now. It's probably stored in a hard drive
Mhm.
of whatever he did, like all the DV stuff. DVD stuff. I think I did transfer onto a hard drive, and that might be in there. And I started labeling it. This is like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, man. And it's a tall order, because, you know, it's fun to talk about the past, but to like just try to live in the past, it's not, and the older I get, the more I'm like, whatever. It's fun to talk. You want to do an interview? Let's talk about stuff, because, I got some fun stories, and I had mostly really good times through all this stuff. But I still have a lot to do, and to dig into, like, going back into like my years with Ozzy, or my summer with Ozzy, and my
Mm.
time with Pride and Glory, and make it, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of
Yeah, of
time,
course, of course, of course.
and if somebody wanted to, or there was like some reason to do that, well, then you do it. But maybe there is a reason for some people. Maybe some people would get entertainment out of it. But I just, yeah, I've got my little list of stuff I want to do now, and that's probably not going to help it that much.
No, no, I get that. I get
But
that.
I
I get
do
that.
want, but I would like to go back, and I did tell Vinnie Paul before he passed. It was probably within a year or two before that I had this footage of Donington, and have always, I didn't get it to him. Not that it would make a huge difference to him, and I think I've even told Rex, Rex Brown, the bass player,
Mm.
buddies with him, and I don't know how much it would matter to them, but I don't know how, because I know they have so much killer footage, but I do, and they might have their own Donington footage from the side of the stage, but I have a pretty really a cool angle, and it's a nice perspective of how much
Yeah,
ass they
pretty
were kicking
unique.
back then. You know, so that would be worth it to find that and put it on a DVD or a hard
Mm.
drive or something and get it to them. You know.
Do you know what? If you'd have told 10 or 11-year-old Brian, you're going to do all these things in the future with Ozzy, with Whitesnake, with, whoever. I mean, can you imagine as a kid ever
No,
imagine?
no, no. That's always cool to think about. How can you not think that? I mean, I bought Slide It In on cassette. I practiced that record because I loved cozy snare sound
Mm,
on when I saw the MTV videos, which I still don't understand. MTV was such a great tool for marketing, new things to,
mm,
right in the center of your house. I don't know why that's not there like it was, because it was just I, I watched it ridiculous amount of
yeah.
hours. But anyways, yeah, all those Foreigner, I bought records and practiced too. All the Billy Idol. How can you ignore Billy? You see him all over MTV, and who doesn't like Rebel Yell and all this
Mm,
White Wedding and Flesh for Fantasy and all that stuff was killer stuff. So and to get to write with him and make records with him and not just be his drummer, that was probably one of the coolest experiences of any artist I've played for. Was Billy trusting me and getting in a room with me and saying, hey, let's write and record music, and
mm.
it becomes this
Amazing.
comeback record, and we did a Christmas record together and songs for his greatest hits, and it's all great stuff. But I never as a kid, I didn't that wasn't the big picture. The big picture was Zeppelin, Rush, Van Halen, Maiden. It was to be in your own band,
Mm.
Aerosmith, and you start a band and you write music that people like, and you get a deal and you go on tour and you become the band, a big band. That's the dream. I don't know if there's that to me is still the biggest dream, but you can have that drive and goal and ambition and stuff, but there's so much that goes into that. I mean, just think about that, whether it's Zeppelin or Sabbath. Um, Van Halen to find, for Eddie Van Halen to find a David Lee Roth and with a backup with a bass player that sings like he sings like Michael Anthony combined with Eddie's vocals with Alex's style of drumming, and it becomes a thing. Not only are they all great players, but they actually wrote music that's timeless, and or Zeppelin or to get those guys together. Not are they like, when Page starts Zeppelin, he finds great players. Okay, he knows John Paul Jones. Great. Do we know John? John's a great session
Yeah.
musician. Do we know he's going to come up with these insane,
Mhm.
brilliant arrangements or songwriting? Whether it's the songs that I mean, John Paul Jones wrote the Black Dog riff or All My Love or whatever. He wrote it along with Robert, of course. But Casalambra, do we know that this guy is going to deliver over a decade of this insane and Jimmy being Jimmy? But he found Robert Plant, the perfect singer. And then they find Bonham. Robert goes, there's this dude, John Bonham. And they're all like 19, 20 years old. Maybe Page and Jones are like 22. And they, like, it's, or Queen, whatever. Get these guys together and they come up with the goods.
Yeah,
That's
freeze, another one, isn't
so,
it? Yeah.
yeah, to be able to do that, that's just so, it's so rare. And yeah, there's a ton of bands out there because there's a ton of people trying to start bands. But think of the bands that didn't make it. So as much as I wanted to have my own band, and I tried, but then other things happened in my 20s where, oh, I got an audition for this, and I want to do that because that's experience and that's a gig, and then that led to this, and that led to this. But in the back of my head, I was like, yeah, but I got to get my own band together, and I've tried, and over the years, and I'm still going to keep trying. That's the fun of life and music and being a musician and this whole business is you can wake up any day you want and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Um, no guarantees, but there's also you know the ups and downs. There's no guarantees for anything. But if you keep working, improving yourself, then I'd like to think that your chart's going to kind of your graph is going to continue on the up. So just keep trying. But man, it's not easy to start an iconic band, and so that was the goal, and that still will be. And if I die and it never happens, that's fine. You keep going for that, And but I'm definitely happy, and I guess cool, proud of who I've played with and stuff, and who would have known even up to this year, you sit around sometimes going, okay, I'm doing this, I wonder what else will happen because things happen in life and you
Hmm.
don't know. Am I going to get hit by a truck today and it's done, or am I going to get a call that is something new that's cool to me? And that happened this year with Gene Simmons. You know,
Oh,
we started off as one one festival show he had an offer for, and then he booked a bunch of summer stuff, and it looks like there's going to be a bunch more stuff next year as well, which is great. But this is Gene Simmons from the first band that I got into. Kiss started it all for me. Peter Criss was my first drum hero.
yeah.
Those are the first records I learned rock drums to. Those are the records I learned ghost notes to. I learned that's it. That's the
Hmm.
beginning. As Kiss, Rock and Roll Over, Alive, Dress to Kill, Destroyer,
Hmm.
all that stuff. Love Gun, Alive too. That era. That's where I grew up. It was like years of Kiss before Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Foreigner and Nugent and AC/DC and Queen, and it was all Kiss because I was a little kid. I was like 8 years old,
Yeah.
but that's where I learned how to keep time. So to play with Gene, it's like
That's
that goes
amazing.
back to my beginnings. I'm playing whatever Deuce and Calling Dr. Love and Parasite, Cold Gin.
Cold Gin's the first song I ever played live, ever.
Oh wow,
Ever.
great tune, and we could spend a whole podcast talking Peter Criss because I've had to revisit a lot of that stuff, which is always fun, but also just hey, I think I know it, but let me go and hear what Peter's really doing and pick up some extra, some other little things. Uh, but man, I love his drumming and I love what he did. It was just there were parts, but there was some randomness to it, and there was some Keith Moon to it. There was always a boogaloo because Peter wasn't like a big fat kind of like a Bonham DeRozier
No,
Yapsy type of. It wasn't. It was more of a boogaloo, and it had more of a dancey swing to it. But man, that's what made Kiss sound like Kiss compared to
totally.
if you had, when Eric Carr came in, he was more on the big fat, of
Yep.
course, the big fat bottom side, that power side of things, which was great for the time. Um, and uh, I'm thinking the Creatures of the Night record, which is just such a nice, huge, massive ambient drum sound, a lot like a real one. Like before, people were just, before there was too much studio trickery involved. They really got that big ass sound with Eric on Creatures of the Night, and it's a beautiful sound, and maybe that's not something you get with Peter Criss, but you did get a big ambient sound with Peter on like side 4 of Kiss Live 2, songs like Larger Than Life and All American Man, and specifically Larger Than Life, because people debate, oh, that's not Peter Criss because it sounds kind of Bonhamish. It's like, well, it's Eddie Kramer. Peter's drums sounded great. It's just
Hmm.
Eddie, he was in a certain room, mic'd him up a certain way,
Way of doing things.
caught
Yeah.
certain ambience, you know. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun to go to. That's fun stuff. Sitting here in my freaking 50s, going, you know what? This year I got to relive, this to play with this iconic legend from this band that started it all for me. It's just how's that? It's nothing but positive. It's all good, and not to mention he's a great guy and he's totally cool to work with. And we are a true rock band. We're all singing backups.
Oh, amazing.
There's no click. It's all about in rehearsals, you know, trying to catch the best tempo or the best groove. Yeah, Gene takes chances live. We have some openness to the show. There's some jamming, and he'll change things up, and it's great because every night's going to be its own thing. And I think that's cool because as awesome as the live Kiss show is, it's pretty regimented, but it has to be. There's cues and there's
Hmm.
lights and explosions and smoke and fire and blood and blah blah blah, and people are flying around and things are shooting everywhere. Well, you got to be on cue. You got to have, the lighting guys sound. Everybody's got to know what's going on. The crew is everybody's got to be on the same page. But with us, it's like plug in and let's just go. And I think that's a lot of fun for him because it's just that different side of something that after 50 years of being in Kiss, I mean, that's a machine, and it's one of the most massive rock machines ever.
Yeah.
But for him to be able to let loose a little bit, I think that's fun, and it's fun for us because we can show that in this day and age, we really are playing live,
Hmm.
where there's so much talk and controversy over what should be accepted or not. And hey, do what you want. But all I know is I thought when you play an instrument, you want to play you want to put the time in to be able to throw down any day, any moment, wherever you are, with no excuses. I that's where I stand on it. I don't, and I like that we do that with Gene, for better or worse, man. If something happens and it didn't go right, okay, well, we'll do it better tomorrow, or whatever. Shit
Well,
happens. We don't even use in-ears. We have the
old
old school
school.
monitors. Yeah,
Yeah.
old school monitors, all of us. No click track, no in-ears, and the set list changes. You'll just think about it and go, yeah, maybe we should open with this tonight. It's like, which is so rare in rock.
Mm.
It's like, because of usually a formula works. Deliver the show in different cities to different people, but give them what you think might be the best show.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it is the best show, but maybe some changes aren't that bad. Who knows? Maybe it'll be even better. We won't know until we try. And I like that side of it as well.
Well, do you know what? I really, and I mean, I really, really hope it comes over to the UK at some point, because it would
Oh
be
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I think what he did this year wasn't a big planned out thing. It was like, oh, there's some offers. You guys around?
Hmm.
Okay, let's do it. And and I think when he put that together for the summer, based off of this one South American festival, some offers were coming in after that, and he could do whatever he wants. I mean,
Hmm.
he didn't have to do anything, or he could do. I mean, that's the beauty, I guess, of being Gene Simmons. You can be Gene Simmons and go book tour wherever you want.
Sure.
Um, but I know he was happy, and there's stuff that's been announced for the U.S. next year, which is cool. And I know there's some talk of other offers and stuff. So yeah, I would be
No.
surprised if that didn't happen. I can't say when, but yeah, it would. If we're going to go play around and tour, then yeah, I think we're going to
I
definitely
hope
be
so.
in the UK at one point for
I
sure.
hope so. Do you know that there's yourself and Charlie Benante are the two biggest Kiss fans that I've had on the show by a million miles. And I don't
Yeah,
know if you.
Charlie's huge. He's a
Oh,
huge Kiss. I
well,
mean, he's huge Kiss, Zepp, Rush.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he sent me some bootlegs, some killer. At least one. We transferred or hightailed some newly released killer quality Zepp bootleg. Like, he's hardcore in there too. And I know he loves it. He grew up on his Rush,
Mm.
and but I think it probably started for both of us with Kiss. It was probably, yeah, Kiss first, and then Rush and Zeppelin right after.
Ah, do you know what? It's totally refreshing. You're a fan of music, number one, and that comes over straight away, which is so refreshing to see.
I always will be. I mean, yeah, I'm still the idiot who's got Kiss, Van Halen, and Zeppelin posters in his house on his walls everywhere. But I also have drums and guitars in every room, because that's what I want. Because it's like, because I pay for the damn house, I want what I want in my house.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I got this guitar here, the acoustic. You go in there. I also have a studio here, so the living room is the drum room. It's got a set of a kit mic'd up, ready to go, and it also has a candy apple red Neil Peart replica kit, which
Oh, nice.
which is set up because I had a fire years ago in this studio house I was renting, and I had to put everything into storage. It was pretty bad. Like, a lot of things, I didn't know what was going to make it through the fire. Like, I had to go through everything, but there was a lot of cleanup involved, a lot of um, so it was like 4 years ago or something. And then I was in this one place, and now I'm in this new place, and finally everything got out of storage. Like, I did set up the studio, and I was in this other place I was in, and I had like a garage studio. But then when I moved up into this place, everything finally got out of storage. I had a little more space, and I was able to, like, kind of one by one bring a snare drum into my kitchen and take it apart and clean it up. And I mean, Vinnie Paul gave me one of his, was it a Pearl signature snare? It was like an 8 by
Oh
14
yeah. Was it
something.
the snakeskin?
Snakeskin one, yeah, that thing. I never touched it. He had sent it to me, and he had a note, like a postcard on it with a note, and signed the head. And I just had it sitting, like I wasn't gonna play it. And that thing was trash in the fire. It was like, I have pictures before and after that. I cleaned the shit out of that, and it looks pretty darn good now. And I tuned it up, and it
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
killer.
Great
Like, it's
drums.
really tight.
Great drums.
Yeah, it's really great sounding drum. So now it's a drum that I will eventually use somewhere somehow. But I have so many snares I started, collecting or these vintage, these leadies, slinger leady era, which is the late 50s to the late 60s. And I had one as a kid that got eventually the main one I was telling you about. I recorded Pride and Glory with and all this
Mm.
junk. It got stolen. My whole suitcase got stolen coming home from doing a record in Canada a couple years ago. And so I just started, and it had a certain sound to it. So I started trying to look into these drums, and they all do have that sound, but still, maybe it's just me bugging out and superstition. But that one I had was the best sounding one of them all.
Mm. Yeah.
But I just kind of got into collecting these old ladies. So I have a whole bunch of snares, but it was collecting these new ones, cleaning up the old ones. But yeah, and getting to back to the point, the pure replica kit, that was really damaged. It was like weeks of work to like some of the concert toms were charred, like blackened.
Yeah.
So I just cleaned the crap out of them, found the spray paint that was like actually it was really close to the original color and candy apple red, and put it back together. And now it sits up there because it was a lot of work. And I'm like, I look at it, I go, cool, man, there it is, in all its glory. And then upstairs in the loft, I got the recording studio, I got the Pro Tools, so everything's mic'd, snaked down to the drum kit that's mic'd up, and I record and do sessions here. And it's a big ambient drum room, get big sounds in there, and yeah. So
Perfect.
then I walk up my stairs. There's a poster of Ace Frehley. Oh, there's Eddie Van Halen. Oh, there's Zeppelin. There's Kiss. There's Rush. But it's fun. I don't. It's inspiration. That's all it is, man. Everywhere I turn, I'm inspired, and I can't get away from it. And that's it, man. Yeah. So
Incredible.
I'll always be a fan, and it probably keeps me young because I really don't care about my age. I just figure like I'm here, and then I won't be. So while I'm
Yeah.
here, it's all one story. It's all one journey, and just try to make the most of it.
Well, that's a great place to end this, but I've never done this before, and I'm going to ask you now. I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right.
We've talked for an hour and a half, and there's probably a million things we haven't touched on. So I'm going to say, would you be up for a part two at some point?
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say I know because I always in podcast or interviews, oh yeah, I'll just stick to the point, get there quicker. But then I'll go off on tangents because it reminds me of a funny story,
It's
or you'll
good.
ask me something, whether it's the Pride and Glory of Donington that ties into us in the studio and funny stories, or the making of the record, or the drum set. Before you know it, it's a half hour of Pride and Glory stuff. Um, yeah, and there's a lot we didn't touch on, and there was some stories in there that when we were talking, I was thinking, we're talking about, which I think is maybe even another good way to end this is for anybody out there that's listening, cares about anything I may be saying, been doing this like freaking 35 years, and every experience makes you better. And because I had somebody at the last Don Felder show, oh, I, I don't know, how did you get to play with all these people? And I'm like, well, the first thing is you got to love what you're doing. It doesn't. It's yeah. That's all I know is drums and music. That's all I ever cared about. There was no alternate. It's just there wasn't, and there never was going to be. I'm never going to dress up in a suit and drive to an office job. It's like I'm never going to have a day job that doesn't have something to do with music. I was like, no, can't have like no, and that's just me telling myself no. That's not because I have this goal in mind. I'm a little kid saying no, and that's what it is. But so you got to love it, A, and B, you have to be able to weather storms. You have to have a thick skin. You have to accept that there's going to be goods and bads, like there are anywhere. Just because you got this gig and things are cool doesn't mean next year some shit might happen that affects things or it doesn't work out. Whatever, things change. You might be kicking ass at a band, but that boss, whoever hires you, they might want to change it up. It's like I've been the guy that's come into other drummers that have had it changed up on. You know what I mean? And I'm in there now. And it could happen to me. But you got to be cool. You got to be on time, and you have to play wherever you are. First of all, playing out. It's cool to make it like I do it myself. Make videos at home because it's social media world now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like but to really prove yourself and throw down, that's when somebody comes and sees you and you sit down and start playing. And you go for it and you go, wow, this is happening now. This isn't like the 100th take on a video, that I'm doing in my studio or whatever. This is in the moment. And I think that's what, kind of separates, the boys from the men, so to
Yeah.
speak. And uh, And every experience makes you better. It doesn't matter if you're in a cover band in a club. It doesn't matter if you're in a stadium. It doesn't matter if you're making like $10 for the gig or 10,000. It's all, you've got to get up there with no excuse. It doesn't matter if you're in a different time zone. It doesn't matter if you're jet lagged. It doesn't matter if you're a little sick. It doesn't matter that I hurt my finger. Like just nobody cares, man. You've got to throw down. And all those experiences make you better. And the next time that stuff comes around, you're going to be better for it. I broke my stick in my left hand. I didn't have a spare on the left side. I'd reach over, and the other one dropped. And like, okay, you got to go through that stuff to get better, you know. And you can't really worry too much about what, you want people to say nice things about you. He's a good guy. Oh, he laughed. Every joke he said was really funny, but you can't worry about like trying to have everybody like you. You are what you are. And I can't help that when, you know, 10 guitar players walk in a room, 7 of them might be kind of boring and or have an attitude, but then Dimebag walks in the room and he lights the place up and everybody talks about
Yeah.
Dimebag. It's just the way he is, it's just the way Randy Steele we talked about. You know what I mean? Everybody's got their own personality, and you are who you are. Just do what you do. There's some people have this carefree spirit to them. Some people are very focused and driven. Some people are very methodical and anal. Everybody's got their thing. Don't try and be any one of them. Just try and uh, be what you are, what makes you happy. And sometimes it's really hard to figure out what you are. You know what I mean? What am I? Sometimes I'm in a good mood. Sometimes in a bad mood. Sometimes I'm happy, sad. So sometimes I'm very focused and driven. Sometimes I let loose. Right. Well, somewhere in there is you. Because I feel like I'm like all those things. Sometimes I try to be like really, focused, and sometimes I'm like, whatever, go for it. Just it's rock and roll. Because that is part of it. And I try and have that balance, but it's also moderation too. Am I going to, I've never been a drug addict or an alcoholic or any had, because it's like moderation. It's like, oh man, I want to go exercise. Oh, I want to party. I want to practice. I want to not practice and just go mental. I want to destroy something. I want to build something, you know. But you just got to figure it out, and nobody, including me or you or this podcast or anybody else you have on or wherever you go, nobody's going to give you the right thing for you. It's just you are you going to be a prog drummer? Are you going to be a freaking speed metal drummer? Are you going to be a funk drummer? Are you going to be the next Buddy Rich? What, I don't know. Who knows? But you know better than anybody else. And if it makes you happy, that's where you should be. That's what you should be doing. And so it's a combination. Just be cool with people and play your best and focus, man. When nobody else is around, nobody's telling you what to do. You have no teacher telling you do it this way, or no, you're not doing it right, or you're not. Because I teach a lot. Whenever somebody wants a lesson or whatever, I'll teach. I've been doing it forever, and I'm a pretty good teacher. And because the goal is to make, because we don't have to play an instrument, we choose to. And nobody's saying. I haven't met somebody who said to their kid, "You're gonna play drums for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not." We play. Or you play guitar, or you sing, or piano, or whatever. But when you're alone and it comes time to focus, that's on you. Like, and that nobody has control over. And I think that's something that a huge thing that not many people talk about. And I notice it in giving lessons. Like when I'm not there to help you or your teacher or whatever, are you focused? And I see a lot of people that aren't. Like I could only imagine what it was like to sit, if you're alone in a room with Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rhoads or Al Di Meola or Holdsworth or Bonham or Peart, when they're that you can hear that focus in their playing. You could hear it. They were alone, and it wasn't just, oh, I just kind of jam and do it. You might be saying it like I know Yngwie said, I didn't practice, I just played. Yeah, but there's a focus to whatever you're doing to get to that level and do what you did and stand out in that way. Okay, maybe there's a little luck, maybe, but I think there was this unrelenting focus that you just have. That's just, it's there. And I know I've had it because I've taught so much, and I'm like, why are you staring out into space? Sometimes it's okay to stare out into space, but are you looking at what your hands are doing? Are you looking what's going on with your fingers? Are you feeling the balance when you go to do something you can't do? You got to take that little thing and figure out what's causing you to not be able to do what you do, and focus on that. And I don't know if a lot of people do, and some people maybe they don't have to. I just want to be a rock drummer and play rock, and they got a nice groove, and it works out, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't think it's that way for everybody at all. So um, yeah, experiences, man, and experiences are getting out and getting away from the camera sometime too, you know, like proving yourself live in the moment. That is, God, imagine going and seeing. I mean, I've seen so many killer musicians. It doesn't. Jesus Christ, Simon Phillips, Dennis Chambers, go, John Scofield. Just go and watch these people do what they do in the moment, right there, and you're like, this is the level they're at. That's their normal level. This isn't like, I got to warm up. Oh, give me 6 months. You know, this is where they're at, man. I love watching Weckl on Instagram, man. I absolutely, I've loved his playing since I first heard him. You know, it's Chicory Electric Band.
Yeah.
But God, it is just this, just his kit sounds beautiful. His playing, the flow, the ideas. It's also Weckl, but it's all just so, he's so in control of everything, and it's just such a huge amount of inspiration. You know, it's just such a high level. I just want to say that because we're drummers talking mainly drums,
Oh
but
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
whenever I see him play, it just stops me. And there's so many great drummers out there, but there's just something about it because he's musical, but it's this high level. It's kind of like Holdsworth. You know, Holdsworth is this insane level that's started a sound and a style on guitar that hadn't been done before. And you just watch these guys and you're like, okay, I don't want to be them or play like them. But where they got themselves to, oh my God, the dedication, you know. And it's not that I don't want to play with them because I don't play like them because I don't like. If I could, I would. If I could sit down and do Weckl, that'd be. I just here. I'm gonna bust out my Weckl, and you're like, dude, you sound like Weckl. I'd be like, yeah, man. I don't really bust it out much, but you know, no, I obviously I can't. But um, it's not what I've strived to be like because still a part of me that, man, when you sit down and go freaking Cashmere, man, whatever, whatever, the space, the groove, the sound, that, you know, I don't really hear that from like a lot of like whatever jazz fusion drummers or something, but there's a power to that. That's, oh, come on, that's also something, you know, unto itself, you know, just being able to fix it, you know, do the simplest thing in the world and make people go, that's what Bonham did to me. It's like, or DeRozier, when I was like, what's happening here? There's not much happening, and it's hypnotized me. I'm mesmerized with this groove and tone.
Perfection. Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfection.
groove, groove. Everybody's got their own groove, you know. Gad does it too, though, man. We watch Gad play. Oh my God, it's just like makes me laugh because it's like he's got it. It's all there. The excitement, the groove, the space, the you know the the themes. You know, oh God, go on forever. Yeah, let's do a part two.
Well, I think we need to because there's so much more. But listen, this has been amazing, and your enthusiasm for music just it just shines through, and it's an amazing thing, and I'm glad we got to do this, and I
Oh,
appreciate it.
cool. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, well, I got a long way to go. You know, I really do. I mean, I'd say at this point, I used to in my 20s, I was like, I'm a few years behind where I want to be. You know, and then I got my 30s. I'm like, about 5, 6 years. For my 40s, I'm like, I'm about a decade behind now. And I'm like, I don't know. About 25 years behind schedule right now. I got a lot to do. You know. But
Well,
it keeps you moving, man. And we are talking, you know, when we were talking about part two initially, I said all this, I just babbled for 10 minutes, but I was thinking about experiences yeah, we'll talk about it next time. But one of the craziest experiences I had was when I had to fill in literally last minute for a Journey show, Foreigner Journey were on tour in 1999, and Dean Casanova was the drummer, and he hurt himself right before the show, and they asked me, Foreigner's about to go on, you guys play an hour, then Journey goes on, but we're all everything's running a little behind right now, and we're going to run into fees and overtime, curfew fees, all that. And I said yes, and I did it on Dean's drum set, but I had never played his set before. I'd never played with Journey before, and it was to a click. And it was in front of 17,000 people in Reno. So that was like, but man, it was crazy. Like it was a crazy experience. The only excuse I had was, hey, I never did this before. Nobody told me. But you're on stage doing this, playing these. Yeah. So that was, those are things that, man, that it builds character.
we'll dig into that one next time,
Yeah.
definitely. Look,
Cool.
Brian, honestly, thank you. You're a gentleman. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, man.
And
Thanks.
we'll
Same
we'll
here.
we'll see we'll get it see if we can get it sorted in the next few months, and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
part.
Sure.
Cheers, Brian. Thank you.
All right, man. Cool.